Hello, Internet. My name is Aloria, and this is week 2 of Oh, hello. My cat came and joined me. Hi, my name is Aloria. This is week 2 of my November book bingo, where the amount of bingos I get is the amount of books I can buy for the next month. And we're just going to jump into it from there. The first book I read this week was The Song of Six Realms by Judy Lin. I being her middle initial, Lin being her last name, not her last name being Eileen. So the main character, all the names are like Chinese, so I am not going to try to pronounce them. Sorry about that. I don't want to butcher the language. It's a beautiful language. I have a harder time wrapping my mouth around the words. Xin Yin. So the main character, her parents were disgraced, and so they died. They were executed. And so she's grown up with her uncle, who she loves and adores, but he has to go off adventuring for whatever reason. So he sells a contract to this lady who is in charge of an entertainment house, not a whorehouse, but an entertainment house where they serve drink, food, they put on shows, plays, dances. And the main character's special talent is that she's really good at this musical instrument. I think it's called a qin, but I could be remembering that wrong. I did listen to this. I think that's what it is. So she's really good at this qin. The particular one she has is a present from her uncle. It was made by this famous qin maker, or at least the apprentice of this famous qin maker, which is almost as famous as the original one. Anyway, it's a highly valuable instrument. Her uncle gave it to her. She loves it. And then her uncle dies. It becomes one of her prized possessions. During her first night as an official apprentice, where she plays a solo on the stage where people can see her, this guy comes and he tries to buy it, and she's just like, heck no. He buys more of her time, and he's just like, hey, I'm sorry for trying to buy it. Obviously, it's very important to you. This instrument, I think, might have some clues about not only your uncle, but my mentor person. I really need your help, or I just need help figuring out what happened, because my mentor also died the same time your uncle did, and I think they were doing something. And he had a letter from the mentor or the uncle basically saying, hey, take care of this girl if something happens to us. So she agrees to go off with this guy to his manor in the mountains. And she gets there and things are a bit weird. And then she comes to find out that this guy is actually a duke in the celestial world. And she is now in the celestial world. So she is teaming up with this guy to figure out what happened to her uncle, what they were investigating, the uncle and the mentor guy. It's kind of the unveiling about what happened and what's kind of going on. And periodically these things called Devastators. These monsters essentially come and periodically attack them. So one happened back on Earth, and then another attacked her in the celestial world, and yeah. It was an okay book. I rated it 3 stars. As you could probably tell by my description, I have a hard time kind of describing the through plot line. And that was actually one of my biggest problems with it. It was just a lot of the book was trying to figure out what songs to play to activate the clues in the instrument. And there was this intrigue stuff, but it kind of felt like it was happening in the background almost. The climax is this epic battle amongst all these factions, and I just didn't quite care a whole lot, because I guess the whole time I'm just kind of drifting along, and I didn't really feel very invested. And that might just be a me thing. It might just be it's a sort of writing, or maybe I was too distracted when I was listening to it. I don't think it's a bad book. I think it would be a very good book for other people. For me at that moment, I don't think it was a good book. I mostly picked it because it had a really pretty cover. As for the bingo board, I think the best place for this one would be a book with a number in the title, because it's the 6 realms. I wasn't really noticing a whole lot. Oh, my kitty left me. Why do you keep leaving me? It does have a title in it. I mean, a number in the title. So we're just going to put it there. And then the next book that I read was 1,000 Pieces of You. I actually read a physical copy of this. Behold, physical copy. And it's YA, and it was a fairly quick read. I really liked it. That was part of the reason why it was a quick read, is because I genuinely enjoyed it. And so I rated this one 4 stars. This is something I picked up from a thrift store months ago. I mostly picked up the book because I thought the cover was pretty. Apparently, I'm noticing I have a theme for a fairly white or close to white background with vibrant, almost jewel tones on the cover. That's actually one of the reasons I picked up I Am Made of Death, even though that is a genre I don't normally hang out with, is because I thought it had a very pretty cover, and I thought the ribbon and rib cage was really cool, but I was noticing that in this one. This one I think is also really cool. The main character is an artist, and if you look closely, like the bottom part especially, that is watercolor for sure, on a like watercolor paper, like you can tell by the texture. The top part might also be watercolor, just on a smoother textured paper. It's just you don't see the texture of the paper as much on the top bit, which makes sense. These are 2 of the dimensions. So this is a book about dimension traveling. The main character, Marguerite, parents have invented a machine that basically travels them between dimensions, and it works by like sending your soul essentially across the multiverse, and then you kind of take over the body of the you in that version, which is fun because it gives some limits where it's like if you don't exist in that dimension, you can't go to that dimension, which I thought was nice that they addressed that, because that's been one of my problems in these like alternate reality ones, is there's like always a you in another dimension, and it's just like, but in this dimension it makes no sense that your parents met, and in this one, if your parents didn't meet, you don't exist, so you can't go there. So that was actually, I thought, really cool about this dimension traveling. Her parents invented the dimension traveling, as I said, and then her father actually is murdered, and they are blaming one of the apprentice / grad students. So there's 2 of them, Theo and Paul. Paul is the one that is blamed for the murder. So Theo is like, I have these prototypes that I fixed up so they work, and I'm going to chase him. And Marguerite is just like, I'm going to follow you. And he's just like, that's really dangerous. And she's like, I don't care. This guy murdered my father. So they are going to dimensions chasing Paul, but as they go through the dimensions, she's meeting other versions of him. She kind of sort of liked him before he murdered her father, and she's kind of sort of liking these other versions, and she's just like, issues. So that part isn't a spoiler. It's on the back. But yeah, so that's what's happening. And as I said, I really enjoyed it. I like seeing the other dimensions. They go in a total of 4 other dimensions besides like this one that they started in. So that's what this cover is. It's actually the first 2 that they go into. It's an alternate super high-tech London, and then a Russia, actually. I have 2 problems. One more so than the other one. So we'll start with the minor one. Often they're just like, this Firebird, that's what the dimension traveling device is called, makes you travel through dimensions, not time. And from a narrative point of view, I can see why you would say that, because you just want it to be very easily like one day in this dimension is one day in the next dimension. My biggest problem with that is space and time, as far as I can understand. I'm not a physicist and I haven't studied this, so I might be spouting nonsense, but they're made out of the same fabric. Like there's this image of black holes where you can see the grid. It's all the same thing. So if you can travel through dimensions, you should be able to travel through time. But from a narrative point of view, she didn't want to deal with that, and so it doesn't. And that I can respect, but the science part of me, what I understand, I'm like, that's not how it works. But again, that's the minor issue. The more major issue, and I'm going to try to describe this without getting into too many spoilers, is in the second world in Russia. She makes some decisions. Also, just some very life-impacting stuff is happening to the Marguerite of that dimension. And of course, now this Marguerite is living through it. So there is that unfortunate thing. There's like a coup that goes on, and that's very important. At the end of the first dimension, it's kind of implied that they don't remember being possessed. The people who are taken over by the alternate self, they don't remember what happened. So I am reading the second dimension thinking that everything that this Marguerite does, the other dimension Marguerite is not going to remember. And she makes at least one decision that can very much impact this Marguerite emotionally, physically, everything. Like, I can't really blame her for the time that she loses, but for the decisions she makes, I can. And she just makes this decision, and for a second she's like, I made that decision, and the Marguerite that's here didn't. And then she's just like, it's fine. She would have made the same choice. And while I believe her that in the same circumstance that Marguerite probably would have made the same choice, she didn't, and that could have some very physical repercussions. Like, what she did has the possibility of altering this lady's life completely. And while she might have made that same decision, she didn't, and she's forcing this girl to live something that she didn't choose. And she just kind of brushes it off. And maybe it's a little bit better in the second book, where maybe she gets a little bit more guilt for that, because at the end of the first book, some other things happen that make her think that maybe she should have been a little bit more concerned about the other Marguerite's feelings and position. There's no evidence of that. So from a moral standpoint, I'm just like, Marguerite, you are being extremely selfish right now. Like, really selfish. Like, you can ruin this girl's life. This girl's life is already kind of being trashed around a little bit just because of the circumstances of the world, but you're making some extra, and she's not even going to remember it. She's not even going to get the good stuff out of the memories or anything. She's just going to wake up, have all these repercussions, miss everything. There is evidence that points out that the Marguerite will at least remember the key important details, if not everything, when she was possessed. But still, that was a bit like that's no bueno what you did. But other than that, I really enjoyed it. Just that one bit. It's like halfway through the book. I don't know. As for the bingo board, this one also has a number in the title, but we already put that one on, so we're going to look at something else. Technically, it has royalty in it, but I think I'm actually going to do takes place during a holiday. Royalty is not that uncommon. Like, Daughters of a Siren Queen could have been royalty too. I am more likely to read a book that has royalty in it, so I'm going to do takes place during a holiday, because over the span of a month, this book takes place over a month or so. They have both Christmas and New Year's Eve. So we're going to put takes place during a holiday for this one, and it makes it closer to a bingo, so definitely that one. I mean, it would have been the same amount of bingo-ness for that royalty one, but we're sticking with the holiday, okay? The last book I read was The Invisible Life. Nope. I was about to say The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, and that's a different book that I read a couple years ago. So, The Invisible Library by Genevieve Cogman. So this is another one that involves different dimensions, though. Rather than what possibilities life could have been, it's almost like anything that could, like, worlds of fiction almost are actually real. You have some worlds that have magic, some worlds that just have technology, some worlds that have both. Outside of these worlds, there is this library who collects books, specific books of importance to either the dimension, or the library's like magic system is this language where you can very specifically tell things to do things in this language and they will do it, but you have to understand what the thing is, so you can be very specific about it, and things are more likely to do the things they're supposed to do or can do. So for example, locking a door is very easy to do because doors lock. That's just a natural state of the thing. You can make them do things that are slightly less natural, but kind of plausible. For example, you can't tell a building to just topple over. I feel like you could probably tell a building to topple over, but you can't tell it to like jump up and do a jig, because buildings just don't do that. But you can tell a roof shingle to come off, because roof shingles do come off. And so things like that. And so if a book has importance, like it adds a new adjective or vocabulary, or somehow changes grammar a little bit, or if the book is important to the stability or like to the development of a world, they like these important books and special books, and so they kind of collect them. The main character, her name is Irene. She gets assigned to this apprentice guy named Kai and told to go collect this version of the Grimm fairy tale book from this one dimension, which is infested by chaos. And infested by chaos, I'm not entirely sure what that means. Chaos is just kind of chaotic. what it sounded like to me when they were describing it, it was more likely to go on rules of narrative rather than rules of logic. In most of the worlds, the magic has, a fairly hard system. This does this, this does this. And then in chaos worlds, things are more likely to be less like that. And there are agents of order and chaos. Dragons are for order. The library, I guess, is for order. And things like the Fae are for chaos. So things just happen because it just kind of feels right. So I thought that was just kind of an interesting premise. So she just goes to this world to go find this grim fairy tale book, which was bought by a vampire. And then the vampire was murdered and then stolen by this thief who escaped on a Zeppelin. So she is trying to find this book. And in the process of doing so, she makes friends with the world's equivalent of Sherlock Holmes. He is a well-renowned detective. Then she gets a message from the library saying this, I don't remember the guy's name, but so we're just going to call him this evil chaos guy. He used to be a librarian once upon a time, and then he betrayed the library, and now he is known for kind of dismembering librarians and sending them in pretty little boxes and all this fun little stuff. He's become a bit of an urban legend, except that he's actually real. So she gets a message saying this guy is here, and he is actually also after the book, along with like almost every faction, it feels like, in the dimension itself. So it's all the fun chaos people, and there's metal centipedes and cyborg alligators. So it's a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. I rated it 4.5 stars. I guess one of my biggest problems with it is the reveals were fairly obvious to me. I think I guessed like 90 to 80% of the reveals. The ones I didn't guess were perfectly fine, but like some of them I just felt were super obvious. The one in particular that really kind of like I sit there and go, yeah, no, really, you guys should have figured that out long ago. I figured it out because I am fairly familiar with fairy tale books and kind of fae and stories that revolve around them. So when something was discovered or whatever, I sat there and I'm like, well, clearly this is what's going on. And they didn't until much later on. And the only excuse we really have is that poor Irene is in a lot of life-threatening situations. So maybe it's not that unreasonable that she didn't think of it. But the reason at least half of it I thought should have been obvious to her because she's a librarian. She should be fairly genre savvy. And so I was just a bit like, why don't you know this? But as I said, I guess her hand did get fried shortly afterwards. So she was fairly distracted. So I guess I can forgive her. Just a lot of things, if you are genre savvy, they feel more obvious than maybe they should be. But I didn't detract from my enjoyment. But yeah, so 4.5 stars. Really enjoyed it. My favorite character is Kai. He's the apprentice, and he's a fun mixture of competence and then also just like childlike. It's a Zeppelin! He got really excited when he found out there was a bunch of Zeppelins in this world. So he's my favorite. For the bingo board, there's not really a lot of places to put this one. It might take place in the summer. I really can't remember. Mostly when they talked about the atmosphere, they talked about the smog. So don't know if it's in the summer or not. It's in London though, so their summers aren't going to be as hot and sticky as some other summers. There is a vampire, but he dies before the book starts. So, and then dragons get mentioned. They're a fact of the universe. So I could put it in a book. I really don't want to do that on week 2. It involves fairy tales, but it's not a retelling directly, so that one doesn't count. No one has a pet, so I'm going to put vampires, because the vampire, even though he died before the book started, is an important character. So we're going to go ahead and slap it there. Also, I'm trying to finish that top row. I know it doesn't look like it, because I don't have anything on it, but I do have a memoir picked out, The Glass Castle, so hopefully I can get that done by the end of November. I go through the physical books a lot slower than the audiobooks. So it's on my mind. So we'll see if I finish that off. But yeah, so those are the 3 books I read. I have Song of the Six Realms for a book with a number in the title. I have 1,000 Versions of You. A Thousand Pieces of You. And that one I'm putting in takes place during a holiday. And then we have Vampires with The Invisible Library. And that's it for this week.